Most people don't have a retirement problem. They actually have an income problem that they don't even know about. So believing some common myths could cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars if you are not careful. Jeff Sachs from Sachs Financial is here this morning to break it all down. And let's talk about some of the biggest myths that you can really take control of. So the first one, I should say welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
Great to always have you. Okay, so let's talk about expenses, because I think the one common myth that we talked about is that people think that their expenses drop dramatically when they retire, but not the case, right?
Yeah, no. What happens a lot of times is they just shift. We think that we're going to spend less because you're not driving to work, you're not buying new clothes, you're not going out to eat during lunch, you're staying home. But really what happens is it ends up shifting and you end up spending more money potentially on hobbies and home projects and maybe even some health care or elder care for a parent. So it really does shift, and you have to have a plan for where that income is going to come from.
I mean, of course, it's like whenever, just in life in general, you think you're going to save money by doing anything, right? And you're like, oh, no, it gets filled really
And lately
fast.
it seems like it costs more to do those same things.
Yes, absolutely. All right, another myth, that Social Security will cover everything.
It might. So the interesting thing about a lot of these myths is there's some truth to it, but in reality, Social Security on average, covers about 40% of people's retirement. If you're planning on having Social Security cover all of your retirement, you're in that 30% range, where only about 30% of people spend enough where Social Security will cover. So it's not designed to cover everything. And again, it's more important to make sure that you have an income plan when you're ready to retire and not rely on spending less or Social Security. It's not going anywhere. It's just not going to cover as much as you think.
Yeah, well, that makes sense too. I mean, it's always like surprise, surprise.
Surprise,
surprise, it didn't cover everything. What about the 4% rule? First of all, I'd love for you to explain the 4% rule, but you know, some people say they just want to follow the 4% rule. Is that safe?
So it is a general guideline, and in theory, it sounds really good, because if you think about the returns of the stock market over time, it's been more than 4%. The 4% rule simply says that if you have your money invested in the stock market and you take out 4%, theoretically, the market will perform better than 4%, so you won't run out of money. The problem with that is it doesn't account for the volatility in the market, something called sequence of returns, where if you take money out in a down year, I know the market hasn't been down in the last couple of years, but if we think back to COVID or 2008 or the financial crisis, the tech bubble, if you were retired during that time period, it can drastically affect the long-term viability of your savings. So again, making sure that your risk is aligned with where you are in your retirement is key. Not relying on the stock market to provide you with all of your income is always good.
Gotcha. What about Medicare? I think that there is also a myth that we've mentioned before that Medicare covers everything. Not the case.
And you know, Medicare is great for those that reach 65 because it reduces your initial out-of-pocket, and it does cover a broad range of things, but it doesn't cover dental, it doesn't cover vision, it doesn't cover long-term care expenditures, which I think, and what we've seen with a lot of our clients, is potentially a bigger issue that people don't plan for. So Medicare will help reduce a little bit, but also you're going to spend more out of pocket for things that aren't covered. There are supplemental plans and gap plans that you can look in to kind of bridge what Medicare doesn't cover.
Okay, and then I think the one that we've talked about a lot, another myth is that it's like too late to start saving. You're saying never too late, right?
I hear this all the time. You know, it's never too late to start, especially if you're in your 50s, even early 50s, late 50s, even early 60s. We're probably going to work another 10, 15 years. And if you can put a few dollars in to your company plan, chances are there's a match. This amazing thing called compound returns happens as soon as you start saving some money. So it is never too late.
Never too late. Love it. And if you want to know more, where do we go to find your information?
SachsFinancial.com, or it's really easy to remember, RetireSafeSTL.com.
RetireSafeSTL. Okay, thanks so much, Jeff. Always appreciate your insight.
It was great to be here.